Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be going over more systems in my automated bee production. And today, as of the pyramid that you saw in the last video, I will be going over the finishing section. So stick around, I hope you enjoy it. So first things first, let's get down there. So for the finishing, what I'm doing is I'm taking the combs that are being produced by the bees, and I am separating their components out of them and then going through the further processing and then storage. So as you can see, here are all the combs as they're flying in through the pipes coming out of my alvearies. And what happens are the combs go in through this first junction, and some of them are being voided, which that is actually a mistake. I didn't want to do that. Let me change that. Normally I have rocky comb here, and the reason for that is I have so much gosh darn rocky comb being produced in everything, since I'm using a lot of mineral bees, that I just void it. But for a minute there, my scented paneling was getting production was getting a little lower, so I needed them, but I didn't take that into account. So make sure that if you're going to be voiding anything with a pipe, that you always have something in the slot. Otherwise, it will just split them up. So right now, the rocky combs are going and being voided, and everything else is going through the system. So this right here is my wall of centrifuges, and just like everything else, I'm using routers to get everything going and keeping everything going efficiently with parallel processing. And so I call this the item waterfall, actually, and I think it looks really cool. I could just sit here and watch this, where all the items come falling down. And the way that this system is set up right now is that the combs come into this relay, which act as a buffer, and then they are inserted into a router, and this router inserts into slot 0 with a machine upgrade for centrifuge, speed boost, thoroughness, which means it always finishes a machine before moving on to the next, bandwidth stacks at a time. And those upgrades are very important for this part of the system, especially when you're stress testing. And so what this router will do is, say I get a couple combs are coming in randomly of all different types. It will randomly put them in a machine, but it will try and put at least one in each machine of each different type. But if a second comb comes in that is the same as something that's already in the machine, then it will try and then it will just keep refilling that machine, and so on and so forth. So you can see the routers, or the centrifuges on this side are really busy, whereas there are a couple on this side which don't see quite as much action. That's good, because I need the extra buffer space for, if I were to shut off a couple alvearies and turn them back on, then I have a large influx and things like that. It just gives me more bandwidth at high volume times. And so each of these, I have gates pulling them out and then going through iron pipes. And the reason I did this is I really wanted to use a router. I wanted to use a router to insert and pull out. And it's entirely possible to do that. I've done it before on other things, and even Hypno did it for his systems. And I tried at least 7 different combinations of things. I tried managers, I tried routers, I tried everything to come up with the best way of doing it. And routers are fast, but the thing about routers is they can only handle one item at a time, and they have a machine filter upgrade, which so you could say, oh, I only want to pull out dusts, and then you could have it, and then you can specify which dusts the router will pull out, and then it will only pull those things out, and then you'd have to have another router which could pull out the other items. And it's possible to do that, but it's incredibly tedious, and the possibility of failure, because the combs that come through are so random. All I have to do is switch one bee out there, and it'll put a comb in that my system doesn't know, and the system will fail. So using routers in this case for the pulling out is not very robust. And if that's one of the things, because routers can only handle one item at a time, and if they don't have a place to put the item, then they will just stop serving altogether, and then you'll have an item backlog and bouncing items all over the floor, and it just sucks. So this was the best alternative I could come up with, was using the gates, and they're just regular autarkic gates, and plus I think it looks really cool. And so the items come out of the combs, and then they go into this diamond pipe. And this pipe does the separating that one pipe does the separating that it would take at least 2, if not 3 routers to do the separating for. So this pipe separates the tiny piles of dust from the different bees that I'm producing, and separates them out of the flow. And then I need to get the tiny piles into big piles. And Greg Tech has this awesome machine. I love it. It's called the Auto Crafting Table. It's an amazing, amazing machine, because what it can do is not only can it auto craft items you can put in recipes for 2x2, 3x3, and all that kind of stuff, but it will act as a forge lexicon and convert all metals that go through it to the industrial craft version, so it's easy for storage. And I have one of these set up on my sorting system back home, so all the metals that go through the system automatically get converted, and they're all stored as one type. It's awesome. And then the other great thing that I absolutely love is that it has this symbol right here, this dust symbol. And this dust symbol, what it tries to do is convert small piles into big piles. And it will just sit here and cycle through, like this olivine's about to go. It'll just sit here and cycle through and convert the piles, and when it does, it'll drop them into this slot here, and then you have to pull out of this slot. So it'll come up in a second here. One thing to note about the auto crafting table is that it does require EU. It requires 32 EU per tick, and they have they have 5 input sides and 1 output side. The input side has these green marks on it, and the output side is blocked by the routers, but it has red marks on it. And so you have to pull from the red side. But the interesting thing about if you put it into the green side, the items will go into this crafting area. If you put it into the other sides, it will go into this virtual inventory area right here. And so if an item goes in here, then I can't actually, like this pile of nickel that just came in through this pipe, I can't actually manipulate them like I can here. I can, move them around and stuff like that, but it will still complete the same job as it does up here. And the reason that I have the nickel going into the virtual space instead of this space here is that the auto crafting tables are auto clearing, I guess is a good word for it. So in that if all 9 slots here are filled, then whatever is in the 9th slot down here, if it's a small pile, it'll just kick it out. And that's to make space to make sure that the other piles don't overflow. So that is why I have this set up this way. So this pipe here filters out all the dusts except for the platinum. And they go through and get converted into big piles. And then this router here extracts from the north side, so it's extracting from the blue side, so that's the output side that's blocked there. And it's extracting these large piles using a item filter, and then it's extracting with a machine filter from the crafting table, and then it ejects to the west, so it's ejecting into this chest here. And then this is the buffer chest. The gate pulls out the items, and the ruby dust gets sent to the blue way, and everything else goes to the red way and gets put into this relay, which then sends it off to go into my storage system. The ruby dust goes over here and then gets dropped into a industrial electrolyzer. And once it reaches 9 ruby dust, it will process and convert it into 1 chrome, 2 aluminum, and a couple compressed airs. This guy pipes it out. So one thing to note for Greg Tech machines, the input for the item is on the top, the input for the cell is always on the bottom, and then the output are the sides. So it'll pull out everything, and then this guy filters the compressed air down into an extractor below, and and the extractor gets pulled out and then puts the empty cells back into the bottom of the machine, and then the aluminum and the chrome get sent back into this relay, which then sends it off to be sorted. And then this guy, this is my favorite. Over here, the platinum gets converted into large piles and then goes through, gets pulled out by this extractor from the north side with an item filter and a machine filter, and then an ejector upgrade. And those are all upgrades. I didn't mean filter, I meant upgrades. And it ejects to the east, which is into this inventory slot for this router. And then, like this router does up there, where it evenly distributes amongst the machines, but instead of putting thoroughness on here, I have speed boost, and that's it. And it inserts into the top sides, because these are Greg Tech centrifuges. And what this does is it will evenly distribute the platinum amongst all of these industrial centrifuges. And I have 9 of them here, and that number is specific, because it takes, for each dust of platinum that you centrifuge, you get 1 chunk of iridium and 1 tiny pile of nickel, and it takes 9 chunks of iridium to make 1 bar. So right now I think I've messed with my bees out there a little bit, and I've pulled out some platinum producing bees and put in some other ones because I needed some glowstones. I think I put demonic bees in. Anyway, so the production is a little lower at the moment, but typically I have, at the amount of bees that I have out there right now, 1 of them is not operating. So so as you can see, just pulled out, and there goes a iridium nugget, and there goes some nickel, and then these are emerald pipes, so nickel and iridium pulling out of this chest, and then this goes into a compressor, and then automatically when it turns into a bar, it gets pulled out, put into the relay, and sent out to be stored. The nickel goes out and goes back into the auto crafting table to become a big pile, and then gets sent out to be stored just like everything else. And the reason I like nickel, and I'm keeping it, is because the nickel can replace refined iron in the compressed metal plate recipe. So as long as I have this production going, and then I'm also centrifuging lava, which gives me tin and copper, I can basically make compressed metal ingots for free. I have free iridium, and I have free chrome. And then I also have titanium bees out there, so I have free titanium. I have steel bees, so I have free steel. I have a gold bee, so I have free gold. And I'll show you everything I have. So basically, this bee system lets me produce any high-tech system in the game, which is just absolutely awesome. One other thing to note is this guy up here. This is for things that aren't combs, and this is the centrifuge bypass pipe. And so anything that goes through here will go down through the bypass, under the centrifuges, back up on the other side, and then off to be sorted. So as the items go through here, they go through these pneumatic tubes. And the reason I chose pneumatic tubes over Buildcraft is because I have so many different items going through. I wanted to, red power tubes are smart, and they won't spit items on the ground. They'll just hold them in internal buffers and then shut off the system. So it's possible that if this internal buffer were to fill up, then it would spit out from the inputs here, but it just gives me a little more leeway. And so the items go through, and then go through another buffer relay, and then into this router, which inserts into the top sides because it's going into barrels. And there's a speed boost, a thoroughness, so it finishes filling a barrel before moving on to the next, bandwidth, so it moves stacks at a time. And you can just see the items just flying through it. And this buffer relay is really important because there's so many different types of items that sometimes I can even overload the router. So you need that buffer. And so it puts them all out into my barrels out here. And but as you noticed, the router isn't directly touching the barrels, so I have to put something with an inventory that is physically in contact. So I'm using furnaces. I think they look kind of cool here. And this is the same idea that I'm using to distribute the frames between all of the alveoles, which I mentioned in the previous video. So just to kind of show you what I'm producing and in the amounts that I'm producing, I have diamond dust, emerald dust. This is coal dust, which comes from the diamond bee, iridium bars, platinum, chrome, aluminum, steel, gold, nickel, ruby, and titanium, as well as all the other bee stuff. So I'm doing pretty good. After running this system for only a couple days, and not even full days, they were just a couple days when my computer's on, since I'm not playing on a server, I was able to make a full nuclear fusion reactor and full quantum armor and a gravity chest plate. So this system is pretty darn efficient, and the cool thing about it is that it's infinitely expandable. The way I build all my machines is that if I happen to need more iridium production, or I can just throw down more centrifuges. If I need more production for my frames, I just throw down more equipment. And that's a theme that I've tried to hold true with everything that I build. So yeah, one other thing to note is one thing, I have a kind of like a backup check that's in place. So if for some reason it were to happen that a small pile were to get through the auto crafting table and get into the router that's distributing throughout these machines, since it wouldn't have a place to go, it would backlog, and then all the items would fall on the floor and they despawn, and it'd be really sad. So what I did just to make sure that that doesn't happen is I have barrels here with one of each type of small pile of dust. So this is a just in case one were happen to get through, then it will clear itself and the system will keep running. But as you can see, I haven't touched this in days, and there's still just one. So my system is robust and it works great, but this is a just in case. So I hope you found this useful. Here's my fusion reactor, just to tempt you a little bit. I hope you found this useful, and I will be going over more of my systems in my next videos. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.